everybody. In this video, we are going to try to kill two birds with one stone. We are going to go over your homework, and I'm going to show you how to do this using technology. Notice here, I have our Hawks Learning web interface right here. I have my, let me change my calculator here. And here, no, that's the calculator I want. And here I have my TI-84 Plus calculator. Some of you may have this, or may have the slightly more advanced TI-84 Plus CE. I'm going to stick with this one because that way, because this will work. The strokes I use on this will work on both versions of the calculator. And finally, I have Microsoft Excel. Now, while you can use Excel for your homework, you cannot use it for your test. You can use this for your test. So you need to be familiar with this. Although I will submit, this will get your homework done a lot faster. Okay. Notice in our Hawks interface, we have the Learn component, which basically goes over the exact same material that I do in lecture or was in my previous video. We have Practice, where you can actually go through your homework, and if you get stuck, it will help you through it, and then Certify. And notice here, all you have to do is get 3/4 of the answers correct before the due date, and you've aced your homework. For me, I'm going to go into Practice. So let's go. Okay, notice that we have 4 questions. The first 2 questions have 3 parts. The last 2 only have 1, but they're kind of loaded. And in this one, we have a data set, and we want to calculate the value of the sample variance, and we want to round our answer to 1 decimal place. Okay, I'm going to start off by using the calculator. So here's our data set. To do this, I need to go into Stat. I need to go to Edit. Okay, I want to clear all this stuff. This was from our previous homework. There we go. And I just put in my data values. That is going to be 2, enter, 11, enter, 11, enter, 14, 14, 2. Okay, once I've done that, so let's make sure they're right. 2, 11, 11, 14, 14, 2. Then I can go into Stat, over to Calc using my cursor buttons here, and I want first variable statistics. Okay, my data is in L1. I want this to be blank. Okay, we don't have a frequency list. We want to make sure that it's blank. So highlight that, hit delete, and then go down to calculate. And once again, we have all this information. This right here, S of X, that is the sample standard deviation. That is actually going to be your answer for the next question. But we need the sample variance. So how can we do this kind of neatly? Well, what you can do is come down to this button right here, VARS. This stands for variables. We're going to use this to get that value. Okay, VARS. These are statistics variables, so we want to go down to 5. You can either go down to 5 like this and hit enter, or we can just hit the number 5. And this is the variable that we want, S of X. Okay, go hit highlight S of X, hit enter. Now remember, the variance is the standard deviation. This is standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So the variance is the square of the standard deviation. So I want to take this value and I want to square it. Hit enter. That is my answer, 31.2. All right, there we go. Moving on. Now, what about the next one? Okay, well, let's go back into Stat. Well, there's a couple things you could do. You could actually go ahead and you could hit second, square root, highlight 31.2, hit enter. It puts it in there, hit enter again. That's your answer. Or you could just go back into Stat, go to Calc, first variable statistics. There it is, the exact same value. Now we want to round this to 1 decimal place. And notice here we have 5.58. The second decimal place is 8, i.e. 5 or higher. So we need to round up. We need to round this one up by 1. That will give us 5.6. Okay, and then finally, we have the range. Now I don't think this will help us for that. Well, it does a little bit because it gives us the max, happens to be 14. It gives us the min, which happens to be 2. 14 minus 2, that is 12. There you go. Okay, so that takes care of question 1. Let's move on to question 2. Okay, now this we're going to use using Excel. So here we have the following data set. We want to calculate the sample variance, and that bet you the next one's going to be the sample standard deviation, and the next one's going to be the range. Now to do this using Excel, we can actually copy the data. We can come over to our spreadsheet. We can paste the data. Hang on a second. Let me do that one more time. We can paste the data, and there it is. Now we can come over to another spot, like that cell right there, and we can do this. We can type in equal VAR, and notice that we have a VAR.P, population variance, VAR.S, sample variance. That's the one we want. Highlight that, or you can just type it in, hit tab, okay, highlight all the numbers here, okay, close the parenthesis, and then hit enter. 6.8, that's our answer. Now there's really a number of ways to compute the standard deviation. The first one is, remember, standard deviation is nothing more than the square root of the variance. So equals SQRT, square root, parenthesis, highlight that number, hit enter, or in the other parenthesis, and there you go, you have 2.6. Now there's another way to do this. The other way would be to this, as follows, equals STD for standard deviation. And here we go, we have standard deviation for population, standard deviation for samples. So we want that one down there. Okay, we can hit tab, highlight these values, close the parenthesis. Oh, don't do that. There we go. The exact same number. So there's a number of ways to skin this cat. All right, so what is that number? We want to rounding to one decimal place. We have 2.60. That basically, so there's no rounding involved since the second decimal place is a 0, 2.6. All right, and the last one, of course, is to range. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually go ahead and sort these. That way you know what the maximum is and the minimum is. Or you can just eyeball it. The largest value is 11. The smallest value is 6. 11 minus 6, that happens to be 5. Now, if you really want to be, I don't know, I guess, for lack of a better term, a little anal about it, here's one thing you can do. You can do equals, max. There it is. Parenthesis. Highlight all this. Close it. Minus. Min. M-I-N. Parenthesis. Highlight all those numbers again. Let's try that one more time. Okay, close your parenthesis. And I got 7. Why did I think it was 5 before? 11 minus 4. Yeah, I can do math. 11 minus 4 is 7. It's probably a good thing I didn't eyeball it, but there it is. The other thing you could have done is highlight all this, go ahead and sort it. And you notice we have 11 here and a 4 there. Chances are you might want to do it this way instead of using your do it this way instead of eyeballing it, or you might make the mistake I just did. Okay, so there we go. It's supposed to be 7, and we are done. And we have 2 more problems left. These are only one step. Of course, you have to do all these things in one step. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at question 3. And for this particular case, let's go ahead and use our calculator. So, stat, edit, delete the previous stuff, and put our numbers in. There's a lot of them, so we have to be careful. 6, 12, 10, 11, 14, 12, 7, 12, 14, 17. Let's make sure we're right. 17, 14, 12, 7, 12, 14, 11, excuse me, 10, 12, and 6. Awesome. Okay, so now we can go to stat, go to calc for one variable statistics. There we go. L1. Go down to calculate, hit enter, and there we go. We know that our population standard deviation is this right here, 3.106. You want to round this to the first decimal place since all these are integers, so that is going to round to 3.1. For the population variance, we need to square this value. The easiest way to do that is to go to VARS, statistics, so just hit 5. We want to go down to 4, okay? And the variance is that number squared. And that gives me 9.65, in this case 9.7. Okay, and then finally, for the last part, I just want to go back into stat. I want to go over to calc and do my first variable statistics again. All right, and notice that my largest value, my smallest value is a 6. My largest value is a 17. 17 minus 6 is 11. And this should be correct, I hope. There we go. Okay, and then now for our last problem, I'm going to do this using Excel. So I'm going to take this data, I'm going to copy it. Just to play it safe, I'm just going to delete this stuff. And then I am going to paste my data in here. Okay, first thing is, don't think that these are correct, because we actually have to make sure that we are including all the values. Because look over here, we are doing A1 through A6 of the variance. First thing is, it's also the wrong variance, so we probably should just go ahead and delete this stuff because it's not right. Okay, so let's go over here and let's compute the range. Okay. And the range, I guess we can do it the way that we did it before. I don't want to eyeball it. That's going to be equal to the max of that data set, close parenthesis, minus the min of that data set, and that gives me 34. Okay, for the population variance, just come down here, equals VAR, and now remember, population variance is going to be VAR point P. Okay, highlight the data set, close the parenthesis, hit enter, 89.6. Okay, population standard deviation, well, you can either take the square root of that, or you can do equals STDEV dot P. It preps it for you anyways. Highlight the data set, close the parenthesis, and that gives us this 9.4657. Remember, we want to do one more decimal place, so we want to go down to the tenths. And notice here that the hundreds is a 6, 5 or greater, so we need to round up. This is going to be 9.5. There you go, and that is how you do your homework using technology. Once again, I recommend you do it using this, because this will prepare you for the exam. You cannot use Excel on the exam. And once again, this really isn't that much harder. The only thing you have to be careful about is to make sure that you don't mess up the data entry. As long as you don't do that, you are good to go. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out. You all know how to get a hold of me. This is Bob Boyle, signing off.